Our Labor Party's having a lot of fun with this at the moment, throwing mud at the government. It's probably embarrassing for the Treasurer, and it should be that they haven't been able to clear this up. But the bigger issue for us here, the most important issue, is that we get a good levy in place that raises billions of dollars that we can help pay for schools and hospitals.
So how are you saying that that floor would work? I mean, who would it be distributed to? How would the banks pay for it? Are they each going to top up, an average to meet the level that you think it should be at?
Well, we still need to know exactly what liabilities are going to be included in their definitions. We've got a pretty good idea, but if they can't sort that level of detail out, then we may actually need a higher rate. So we've come out in the last 2 days and said, don't rule out a higher rate if that's what's required. I know in the UK, when they implemented their bank levy, they had to raise it at least 3 times to get the revenue that they required. I don't think the Treasurer should be ruling that out. And I don't think the Labor Party should be out there saying that the Treasurer shouldn't rule out a higher rate. I mean, this is about raising revenue from the big end of town, from wealthy banks that make billions of dollars of profits. If we don't take money from them, then we'll end up taking money from poor Australians, which has always been this government's target.
You've said including foreign banks in the levy would be unworkable. Why is that? Because surely they're part of the big profitable banks that are making billions of dollars that should also be targeted.
Firstly, and I think most importantly, Elise, the policy justification for this levy is simple. Since the GFC, we've had both explicit and implicit guarantees put in place that have given Australian banks, the big 4 banks especially, a competitive advantage. In a sense, it's been an insurance policy for the banks, funded by the government and by the taxpayer. We're asking the big banks to now pay that back. They need to pay a premium if they want that insurance policy, if they want the taxpayer to step in and bail them out should things go astray. We know that's around 20 basis points to 40 basis points based on the best information. I don't think anybody's disputing that they have a discount. They're deemed lower risk in the wholesale funding because of this. They've benefited to the tune of billions of dollars. We want to see that paid back. Now, that isn't the case. That implicit guarantee isn't the case for smaller banks in Australia, the second-tier banks, or for the foreign banks. I believe that the big banks have come out and said, well, you should include the foreign banks because they know it's a poison pill for the legislation. They want to slow this down. They want to muddy the waters. And unfortunately, that's exactly what they've done because the Labor Party's been only too happy to play politics with this issue. I do believe it's a poison pill because if you don't include all financial institutions in Australia, including the second-tier banks, it will breach our international trade obligations with a number of countries where these foreign banks are based, because it will be discriminatory. So it'll have to be a levy on all the financial institutions in Australia. I like the idea that the second-tier banks don't have to pay this levy. They've always been complaining that the sector's not competitive enough and that this actually gives them a chance to get a leg up in many ways. And if the big banks keep threatening that they're not going to absorb the levy like the UK banks did and move on, they're going to pass it on to customers, then customers have a chance to vote with their feet and go to the second-tier banks. That's why we've got a split in the Australian Bankers Association on supporting this levy, because the small banks want to see it, the big banks don't. But I do believe that the whole foreign bank thing is a poison pill deliberately designed to torpedo this bank levy.